Hello everyone, we are today here at the Militärhistorische Museum der Bundeswehr Dresden, and we have Jens Wehner, and he will tell you now how to drive a tank.
Yeah, and the first question is how to become a tank driver. And I was a conscript in a Leopard 1 company, and they selected the people by the experience you have with cars. So how long do you have your driver's license? And I think this was decisive for the criteria how to become a tank driver. And then they selected you and said you have to go to the training, to the tank school, to the tank driver school. In German this means Fahrschule. There is a sign, I don't know if you can see it there. And in the Fahrschule you will drive a tank like this. The pupil will sit here, the teacher will sit there with two other tank driver pupils. And first you have to learn how to drive under military conditions, so you have to learn to get a military driver's license by general to drive military cars and so on. And then after a week or so you were transferred to the tank training school, and there you had some hours in the simulator. At those times the simulator were not completely made by computers, they were more analog. It's complicated, I don't want to tell it for now because it's really complicated to explain how the simulator works. And the simulator was not so much for driving, it was also for driving, but for emergency cases like tank is burning or something happened with the tank and so on. And then you have to learn quite a lot of theory, I think more than a usual car driver. You have to learn how the cooling system works, how the braking system works, and how the other systems from the tanks are working, how to change the tracks, how to make all the little repairs that are necessary all over the time and so on. So this is quite a lot of theory. And then of course you have to drive the tank, and I think the Leopard 1 is a good tank. It's quite good controllable, even for a beginner like I was at this time. And the teacher is sitting here, and the teacher is very, let's say, he looks very sharp on you, because a tank is quite dangerous if you are not able to drive it properly, and you can do a lot of damage if your tank is not driven correctly. And one thing is you have to learn is an emergency brake. And the Leopard 1, he has a half automatic, meaning you have you have to put the shifts, the gear shifts. And if you make an emergency brake, you have to put out the gear, because it could be damaged by a brake if you do it several times. And I was not so good in this, in the reaction, and I had to do this all over the time until it smelled all of rubber. And a Leopard 1 brakes from 50 kilometers per hour, I think roughly 30 miles per hour, in only 7 meters. So if you are on the street and a car is behind you and you will do an emergency brake, there is a high probability that the car will crash into you, because he won't be able to brake that fast as you are able to do. So you see, you have a lot to learn to drive a tank, and at the end, after you have learned all the safety orders and all the systems, and you are able to drive the tanks properly with all the commands that are common, then you have of course to make a test. And for me it was nearly a wonder, because we were only, I guess, 6 weeks on the tank school, and after 6 weeks we were indeed able to drive a tank, and with only 37 kilometers. So I drove only 37 kilometers with my tank, on streets, in mud, in all the stuff you can imagine that the tank will drive on the battlefield. But after 37 kilometers and some kilometers in the simulator, I was really able to drive a tank. And for me this was astonishing. Only after 6 weeks I was able to do this.
Now I have a question, because I remember from Wehrmacht regulations that they pointed out it's very important in a tank crew that they work together very well, because everyone is dependent. So I think it's basically in verbatim, if one guy makes an error, everyone can die. So is there also a focus on this in driving school or in tank school on this part?
Of course it is. Safety is really important, and you shouldn't take it easily because even as a driver you can do a lot of damage, even to your own crew. So if you drive a very steep angle in the mud or so, it's even possible that the tank will thrown over and kill the two guys on the top of the tower. This happened in, I know some cases where accidents happened like this. And of course you are able to do a lot of damage to the traffic. If you are in traffic, if you drive on traffic, and a German Leopard is allowed to drive on traffic, in the traffic. So this is one thing. The other thing is you have to team play with your crew. So team play is really important in a tank crew, even if you're only driving along a street, because your commander on top of the turret can tell you how's the traffic. Maybe some cars are behind you, you have to drive carefully, because if you just brake a little bit, the car will crash into you, because as I told already, a tank has a really good braking capability, because the tracks are much more better fitting for braking than the tires of a car. And so you have to be really careful and really have to make a team play to drive safely over a street, not to say in a terrain which is not a street, which is a combat battleground also, with mud and water and whatever, snow also. And also you have not to think like a car driver, because the Leopard 1, as I said already, had a half automatic, and you had to give, I don't know the English term for this, but we said in German Zwischengas, meaning if you want to put the gear one down, you have to put out the gear, hitting the throttle, and then put on the lower gear, which means Zwischengas. And this is really complicated, even especially if you drive a turn, a curve, or how do you call it? Because in a curve, the tank needs a lot of throttle to make a difference between the two tracks to steer. Yeah, to steer. But if you don't have enough power, if you just let it roll like you maybe would do in a car, the tank will just drive straight. And some guys did this happen. They tried to take a turn, but they didn't have enough throttle. Maybe they had a too high gear or whatever, and then they just drove straight away into the wood or stuff like this. So this is really important. You can't think like a car driver. You have to think like a guy who drives a tank, who drives a machine that is quite different from a car. And without the guys, you see not very much, even as I said already, if you are over this, and you need the hints and the views of the commander and of the Ladeschütze, so the loader, to really drive a tank safe. Yeah, about the team play of a tank crew. The loader is really important, because he helps you with all the heavy duty you have to do as a tank driver, yeah? To check the tracks, to repair the tracks, to repair stuff on your tank, because especially old tanks are quite often broke down and you have to repair stuff. Of course you have the specialists for this, but when it comes to minor breakdowns you have to do it by your own. And this is, a tank is nearly every time heavy work, because all on this tank is heavy, and if you have to repair something you need a loader or a gunner or your commander who is helping you to fulfill the task. And this is also to say with operations like getting ammunition, the whole crew has to carry the ammunition to the tank. And I think this is also a little bit the reason why NATO still has a four crew tank as a standard. But the Warsaw Pact has already the 3, or the Russians today have a 3 crew as standard. But the fourth man, in my opinion, is quite important to help the crew with all the heavy tasks. It's not only that he is a loader who has to load the gun, but he has to help with all the tanks and the repairs on such a tank and all the maintenance manuals you have to follow and to check and so on are quite complex, and this is a lot of work, and you need every hand you have to maintain and repair the tank. So I think team play in this way is very important. And of course you are in a tank, there's not much space, and if there are human conflicts between the 4 crew members, then this is not a really good time for you. So you should have really a good team which has a good atmosphere and who has hopefully no major conflicts between them.
Thank you to the Panzermuseum Munster for inviting me to Stahl auf der Heide 2019. Well, I hope you learned something new. Big thank you here, Jens.
Yeah, thank you.
And also big thank you to the Militärhistorische Museum Dresden, and thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye.